Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today. If you're a focused learner looking to cut through the red tape and get straight to the facts, you are in the exact right place. We're tackling a process that, let's be honest, a lot of families face, but often find kind of confusing. The Shore Regional High School District Meal Benefits application for the 2026-2027 school year. We're going to demystify the paperwork, highlight the massive benefits available, and most importantly, point out the common traps that delay applications so you can get this done right the very first time. Let's get started.
Look, here is the reality. Raising kids is incredibly expensive. Between school supplies, transportation, just daily living, the costs add up fast, right? But are you potentially leaving essential food benefits on the table simply because the government paperwork feels a bit overwhelming? This application doesn't just cover nutritious school meals, it actually unlocks summer EBT grocery benefits to help feed your kids when school is out. These programs are literally designed to give your wallet a breather, and today we're going to make sure you know exactly how to secure them.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at the actual numbers at Shore Regional High School. At full price, a high school lunch is $4.30, and breakfast is $2.40. Over a 5-day week, for just one child, that's over $30. Over a month, well over $100. But look at the reduced price. For families who qualify, the cost for both breakfast and lunch drops to absolutely $0. Nothing. That is immediate, tangible financial relief for your household budget every single week.
So how does the government determine who qualifies for that relief? Well, it all comes down to the Federal Eligibility Income Chart for the 2026-2027 school year. Eligibility is basically a sliding scale based on just two factors: the total number of people living in your household and your total household income. It's broken down wonderfully by yearly, monthly, and even weekly income. To put that into perspective, a household of 4 can make up to $61,050 a year and still qualify. When you're filling out your application, this is the exact metric the school uses to evaluate your form.
Now, for some of you, you can skip the income math entirely, which is always a huge win. If anyone in your household, including yourself, currently participates in assistance programs like SNAP, TANF, or the food distribution program on Indian reservations, your children are automatically eligible for free school meals. You don't even need to detail your income, you simply provide your case number for that program. Plus, children in the foster system, or those officially designated as homeless, runaway, or migrant, also receive categorical automatic eligibility. I actually want to pause right here to address a very common concern regarding privacy and eligibility. The official instructions explicitly state, and I'm quoting here, "You, your children, or other household members do not have to be U.S. citizens to apply for free or reduced price meals and summer EBT. Your citizenship status is absolutely not a barrier to receiving these benefits, and you should know the information you provide is kept strictly confidential, used solely for determining your eligibility for this specific program." So, the crucial point here, the absolute golden rule of this paperwork, is the number one. One single application per household. That's the whole shebang. It doesn't matter if you have 3 children attending different schools within the district. Please do not drive yourself crazy filling out multiple forms. Just consolidate all of your household members, all of your kids, and all of your income onto one single application and submit it. All right, let's shift our focus to preventing some of the most common pitfalls that delay applications. When the form asks for your income, it is asking for your gross income. That's the total amount of money you earn before insurance premiums, retirement contributions, or any other deductions are taken out. A major mistake people make is reporting their net income, the amount you actually take home after taxes have had their way with your paycheck. The only time you should ever report net income is if you're a self-employed business or farm owner calculating your revenue minus operating expenses. For standard wages, always report the gross amount. Here's another massive pitfall that catches people off guard. When you're filling out the income sections for the adults in your household, if someone does not have any income to report, you must physically write a 0 in that field. Do not just leave it blank. Why? Because legally, a blank field is treated as a promise of 0 income anyway. If local officials review your form, see a blank space, and suspect it was just a careless omission rather than a true 0 income situation, it can trigger an investigation and severely delay your child's benefits. Just write the 0.
There's also a frequent area of confusion regarding how to list children on the application. The form asks you to identify if a child is a foster child. For this paperwork, the definition is strictly legal. A foster child is a minor taken into state custody and placed with a state-licensed adult. That is entirely different from an adopted child. Adopted children are not considered foster children for this program. They're simply standard members of your household, and you list them exactly as you would a biological child.
For our military families tuning into this explainer, there are very specific rules about what counts as income. You absolutely must include your basic pay, any cash bonuses, and cash value allowances for off-base housing, food, or clothing. However, you do not include combat pay that results from deployment, and you do not include your housing allowance if you are part of the Military Housing Privatization Initiative. Keeping these distinctions clear is going to ensure your income is calculated accurately.
Now, here is a fascinating logistical twist. Even though these meals are funded by a federal USDA program, whatever you do, do not mail this to Washington, D.C. Sending it to the federal government is a one-way ticket to a severe delay. Instead, just use a pen, not a pencil, print clearly, and return the completed application directly to your child's school. Shore Regional High School processes this entirely at the local level.
Along with your application, you might notice a supplemental document called Form 121S. This is about Medicaid and NJ family care sharing. Because health insurance is just so vital, the law allows the school to securely share your meal eligibility status with state health programs to help identify kids who might qualify for free or low-cost coverage. Now, this doesn't automatically enroll you in health insurance, and it doesn't affect your meal benefits either way. But if you're strictly protective of your data and do not want the school sharing it with Medicaid, you must proactively fill out this form, check no, and return it to the school.
We've covered the amazing financial relief available, the rules for household income, and how to elegantly avoid the most common paperwork traps. So take 10 minutes, gather your documents, remember that gross income rule, and get that single household application turned into Shore Regional. It's a small amount of admin work that pays massive dividends for your family's health and budget. But it really begs the question, if this much financial relief is hiding in a simple school form, what other local, under-the-radar benefits might your family be missing out on right now? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay curious.